want to build a community and share other women's stories. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tea with TE, the She Who Leads podcast. Today, I'm very excited. We have a very inspirational female with us. We've got Ketelyn Jesus. She is the CFO of IBM Americas, the consulting group, and we have a lot to talk about. So there's a very interesting career for us to go through. So, Ketelyn, thank you so much for joining.
No, thank you guys for having me. What a pleasure. Looking forward to talk a little bit, and as we interact with people hearing us, I would love to get to know more people too.
And for us to kick off then, Ketelyn, do you want to just give us a bit of a background into your career so far?
Absolutely. So this is Ketelyn in a nutshell. I've been with IBM for 22 years. In case you're doing any math, I started at the age of 5. No, I'm kidding. But I've been with the company for 22 years. I started at IBM Brazil, where I'm originally from. Done several roles in finance there for like about 9 years. Then I got invited to move to Dubai, which was a big thing and a big change in my life. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But I moved to Dubai to manage and deliver something that called Africa expansion. IBM was opening offices all over Africa, giving empowerment for people in some of the countries we didn't have any business before. So it was really interesting. I stayed there for 3 years, had my son overseas. So he's from Dubai and he's very proud about it and tell everybody on it. And then after 3 years, we moved to the US, where IBM has its headquarters. I've been here for about 10 years in New York. So it's a Brazilian who stayed a couple of years in Dubai, enjoying the sun, and now is stuck in New York with the snow. So recently, I've been the vice president and CFO for technology for IBM. One of the two areas we have is technology and consulting. So I've done a couple of years in technology, and in the past 6 months or so, I'm the VP and CFO, as you mentioned, for Americas over here in consulting. So learning both sides of the business.
Amazing. And I mean, you've done a lot during that time, which obviously I'd love for us to go into a bit more detail about. And I know that through some of these questions, we'll explore some of these points. But I think a good way for us to start is to run through some of the biggest moments in your career to date. So do you want to talk about 3 of those for us?
Absolutely. And you know, I will try to make it like the way I work is like I really like to be more personal. So I'm gonna make some of my personal stories throughout my career, because I think that's how it works for everybody, right? It's hard to compartmentalize everything. So if I really think about 3 big moments, I think the very first one was starting at IBM. So unfortunately, I lost my dad when I was really little, 9 years old. So we had a very humble beginning, right? I come from a family that never had went to college or anything. So when I started at IBM, was a big company, something completely different. And I saw a path to really like changing the trajectory for me, changing the trajectory for my family, right? And I took the opportunity and embraced that and did my very best to keep climbing the ladder. So, but it was a big changing moment, right? Starting at a company, a big company, not knowing anybody. I started as a student. I had like 3 outfits that my mom had to wash like during the week so I could use it again. Yeah. You know, like you know, and you just go through those, and you kind of take the energy from the difficulties to keep climbing it, trying your best, and seeing how that can help you, your family, people around it. So I would say the first one was that. That second one is the one I mentioned when I moved to Dubai, right? So I'm Brazilian. I'm from a Latin culture. We are very like talkative. We play, we joke. And then I go from that environment, from an IBM that everybody knew me as I was working there for like about 10 years, to a Muslim country where like I was even mentioned to a couple of friends. I think I mentioned to you, Terri, too. Like when I joined the company, the very first week, they said, well, okay, so here's like places that you need to go to rent your apartment, to do this, to do that. And I went to this place to get my internet connected in my apartment, the apartment I was renting. And the guy is like, oh, sure, but for us to connect your internet, I need either a letter from your dad, you know, the one that I just mentioned I lost when I was a kid, so not an option, and two, or your husband. And I'm like, beg your pardon? Yes, it needs to be whoever is the man responsible in your life to authorize you to have internet in your house, right? So it was like a big, shocking cultural moment for me, every little step. I grew immensely, but it was very hard for me, especially now. I think it's been over 10 years that happened, right? But now I think the country in UAE is better suited to receive women, foreign women, right? But back then, like having something like that was really a moment for me that I had to completely change myself and be adaptable to a completely different culture. And let me say, I think the third one was when I was about, you know, in that time in your life that you want to have a kid, but at the same time, you're in a really good spot in your career. And then you don't know, like, you don't want to give up either dream, right? Mm-hmm. But so I had my son back in Dubai, as I mentioned, and we moved to the US. My son was about 4 years old, and I was like, kind of feeling it was the right time for my family to have a second. But everybody was telling me, you're about to become an executive. Wait a minute, the next job is around the corner. And at some point I said, you know what, I'll be true to myself. I really want to do that for my family, for myself. I want to have a second kid. We decided to get pregnant. I got pregnant, but I kept like with the dream, right? Working hard, doing everything that it was supposed to be done. And for my amusement, I don't know if the word is amusement, but for like as a recognition, I went on maternity leave. I was out for 6 months. That's how it works for IBM. 6 months of maternity leave. And when I came back, they gave me the promotion as my first time executive. So for me, it was like a personal realization, but also I've been a leader for women at IBM and externally for many years, since I remember, right? And seeing things like that happening to me and happening to many others, it gives me faith that we are doing the right thing. Yes, there's a lot to do. There's a mountain to climb, but there are places and people really looking, like watching out for us and making sure that we do the right thing. If I was in the right spot to become an executive before, maternity shouldn't hold me back, right? And I think it was another big special moment for me.
Agreed. And I think it's obviously testament to the work that you probably put in beforehand. And I know you've mentioned that to me a little bit. You obviously kind of had to feel as though you were doing all of these things to show that you could come off and go back and then get back into the swing of things. But great that they've practiced what they preach and that was there for you at the end of it. Because I think it's scary for women to have to think about that.
And you know what, Terry, there is one more point that I think it was really important. And I talk a lot about this with my mentees and these women groups that I participate, which is also make sure you as a leader, a man, a woman, black with purple dots, I don't care, like everybody, right? Make sure you give the person the option to choose.
Yeah.
So when they came to me, they were kind of almost hesitant to say, I know you just had a child, but we had this executive role that we think you would be good at it. Like, let me choose, let the person choose. You as a leader, make sure that you ask the question, right? Because sometimes I think people just take it like for granted and say, you know what, this person is just coming back from maternity leave or she's in another headspace, and they don't even offer. And for me, in that time was the perfect time. My mom was able to help me out, and like I had the meaning of doing it, but they ask, you know. So I think it's really important for them to ask and for you to keep being vocal, right? Yes, I know I just had a kid, but I'm still in the race, and I want to keep climbing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think so, like you say, I think sometimes there's presumption over actually asking the question and communicating and actually asking the question. Some people might not feel like they are in a position to take it, but if they haven't been asked, you might have just overlooked somebody and then they feel put out and then they might leave 12 months later. So I think,
even if you ask, the person may think, no, I was not. And then they stop a minute. I just had this experience. Somebody in my office last week, she came to me and she's like, I just came back from maternity leave and they are offering me this job. I was going to say no, but then the guy who was offering me told me, go talk to Ketelyns. She did that before, right? Like,
how amazing.
And she took the job. She's here today. I just passed through her office, right? Like, and make sure that you open doors and make sure you make people feel that they can do it, that yes, we're going to help each other along the way.
Yeah, which that support piece, as you say, from anybody is key. And I think sometimes you can go off on maternity leave. I certainly know this from talking to all of the women in my world who say that you go off and you are so like you're so distracted that actually you're not even thinking about what you're coming back to. So knowing that people were still thinking about you while you were away, and that there's a new opportunity. Again, I think it's just that the how you feel valued off the back of it.
Exactly. And this transition from the maternity back to the office, it's so hard on women, right? Because it's not like just coming back. It's not like you just drop the kid somewhere and you're done. No, you're concerned about what the kid is going to eat. It's all these concerns. If you have people that ease your life back, right, that makes a whole lot of difference. And also be that person, right, to ease back on other people's life, but when they come back to the office or whatever is the situation. Could be maternity, could be you're taking care of your parents and elderly parents and you had to get away for a while, right? Like, make sure that you as a woman, you know how difficult it is. Make sure that you help others to feel more welcoming, to feel more like that they have a support system. And I think that's why podcasts like yours, right? And things, groups that we participate and LinkedIn comments makes us at least see that we're not alone, and not being alone is so critical for you to feel it's halfway, right?
Exactly. And I know we'll touch on a couple of those things in a moment. I guess going from the biggest things in your career, some of them have probably been hard. What would you say have been the three hardest moments to date?
Yes. So I think, and kind of doing like a parallel to the Dubai thing that I mentioned, it was like a challenge. It was a big change in career and all, but there were like things, as I said, that I had to have like a shock of reality to become adaptable very fast, right? And it's not just adaptable in the work or with the culture, right? It's with everything, but also come from an angle that, and I mistakenly came from an angle that, yes, the way I was doing was the right, or the way Brazil does it, it's the right. There's no right or wrong. It's different cultures, it's different environments, it's different type of business, right? When I got there was this situation in one of the governments, one of the clients I had to go talk to. And when there's a married woman talking to a married man, they need to have a person kind of intermediating the conversation, which was completely weird for me because I was speaking in English. There was this person in the middle, a guy who was speaking the same English that I just talked about in English with the other guy, just because I couldn't directly talk to him. And it's something specifically the guy was from Saudi Arabia, specific area in that religion. And in the beginning, I left there like feeling like, how's that even possible? It's like 2020, like how are we doing this? But then I took a step back and I said, you know what? It's different cultures, it's different way of working. And for me to become a really global leader, you have to also put yourself in other people's shoes and understand that this different reality and adapt yourself to make sure that it makes the best way for everybody that is involved. And that was a big lesson for me too, right? I think the second one is that I went from Brazil that everybody knew me. I went to Dubai that although I didn't know anybody, everybody from Dubai as a place, right? There's a lot of expats. So Dubai has about 92% of people that it's from abroad, that was not born there. So so everybody's outside, right? So you kind of build a community of people that don't belong, right? And you have friends and you celebrate holidays and you kind of feel kind of included.
Yeah.
When I moved to the US, was a completely different change of scenario, right? I moved to the US, everybody already had their families and their high school friends, you know, and everybody understands the colleges where people went to, and every Monday morning, every meeting is starting with talking about football or baseball, which I don't even understand the rules, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm a hard-die soccer fan. Nobody talks about soccer, right? So it was like a huge shock of reality of how come you go to a place that you know people, you're all involved, to a place that you really don't belong, right? And starting a career, starting a life in a place you don't belong is really hard. And for me, it was like a eye-opening. And now I use this experience also to talk to men when they start the meetings on Monday morning talking about baseball and saying, have you noticed that we have a room right now with 3 women, 5 people from abroad, and 3 American men, and only the 3 American men are participating in this conversation. I don't have a problem on having this conversation, but having every Monday the same conversation, excluding half of the table, makes no sense, right? So for me, it was hard to adapt, but also open my mind to now be in a place that I have a voice, and I'm being vocal to other people who doesn't have that voice yet, to say, okay, so today we're going to talk about baseball. Great. Next week, we're going to talk about, I don't know, Taylor Swift concert because we want to, right? So I think in a funny, light way, I'm taking the times that were hard for me and saying, how do I change that for people coming after me so they don't have to feel the same? Now that we bring people from abroad to the US, right, we have a big group here that calls Feel Welcome, right? And it is to help people. How do you go to a doctor if you need help? Things like that that I had to figure out on my own. And well, I think I'm going to close it up with the third one, which I feel I'm still learning and managing how to do it, which is, I've always had this vision that I wanted to go to the top, right? From somebody who started from scratch as a student, becoming a vice president of one of the biggest companies in the world was my goal, right? And in addition to that, the role where I am today, in 112 years of IBM, we've never, ever had a woman. So that was a dream job, right? I wanted to be the first vice president woman as an Americas CFO. And when I got here, and as I've been noticed this throughout, right? But especially when I got to this job, it struck to me how lonely the top is and how lonely I feel when I have to take hard decisions, and how lonely that I still joke with the team that works for me that I take the J-Lo song and I say I'm still Ketelyn from the block, right?
I love that.
She says like, yeah, I remember who I was, right? I might be famous and rich. I'm not famous or rich or as good looking as her, but I still take her word, right? I'm still that J-Lo from the block. I'm still the same Ketelyn that you all saw me 15 years ago, right? But regardless, right? When you start climbing the ladder and you get there, you have to understand that things change. It really becomes lonely, and you have to take time to listen to other people. And that's why I keep saying podcasts like this and communities like the ones we built, because you need to see that you have other people facing the same challenges that you do, regardless where they are in the food chain, right? And you feel that you're part of something, and you feel that the hard days, they're just that. They're hard days, they're gonna pass, and you're gonna keep growing from it. But I wish I had a better understanding on how lonely the top is, so I better prepared myself. But the thing that I want to do, right, is like how do I make sure that the other people coming after me, they don't feel the same shock, right? Or maybe I make the top with the other people not as lonely. So I'm still trying to digest that and see how I can take this lesson and make something better out of it.
Which I know we touched briefly on. It's interesting because everybody that I work with is in that executive space, and everybody says the same thing. And it's so interesting because I don't think there is a cure for it right now. I think you feel like your teams obviously feel like they can talk to you on a certain level, but you obviously can't go to them with certain things. And then there's not really anybody else in the peer group, I guess, because everybody's in a similar boat to you. So I think it would be great to have the secret sauce, I think, to take it to combat that feeling. I know you are doing a few things though, which I would love for us to talk about, because I think you're certainly on your way, particularly with things like networking groups and volunteering groups that you're part of. Do you mind just sharing a bit more about those?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will start sharing this with a phrase that I heard from one of the volunteer groups that I do, and kind of connecting to this with this lonely top, which is, she said to me something that when you are in like a high position that people are looking at you as an executive, sometimes you whisper and it feels like it's a scream, right? For good and for bad.
Yeah.
So I feel that these groups, right, they help me as much as I help them, because communication is so key. And when you create groups and environments that you feel safe and you vocalize your points, and that's all communication improvement, right? And you digest better what you're going to say, you digest better what you want people to know you for, right? And that's how it's the beauty of it. So right now it's been, I think, over 12 years, I would say 11 to 12 years, I've been leading this group in IBM. So it's women at IBM. It's a big tech company, as you know, but we still have, out of the 330,000 employees, we have almost a half, which is like an impressive number for women, right? So it's a big group. There is women from all over the globe. We get together, and we get together very frequently, and we have like big events like on Women's Day and things like that. And just the big shares or the small shares, it's amazing just to see like, yes, there is this person in Peru facing exactly the same this person in Malaysia, right? And you feel heard, and you feel that you're part of feeling part of a group, a community. I think it makes a completely change on somebody's life. So I do this internally for IBM. I also lead a group of Latinas, which is another subcut of women, right? But Latinas in the US, which is another hurdle we have to go through it, right? And again, pointing to communication, especially when English is not your first language, right? And you haven't learned English when you were a small kid. So there's all these things that we help each other. And externally, I do a couple of things. Near my town, we have a group of volunteers that help women with small kids and even without kids that are coming out of abusive relations, right? Whatever that is, with husbands, with partners, with even like fathers or families, right? And we're just there for each other, right? We help with things like things that they need, right? Clothes and emergent things. But for me, the most amazing ones were when we just sit and we share a meal, simple meal, right? Like last one was like we did a McDonald's night, right? Like simple, but we just shared, and it's a couple of laughs and a couple of cheers over a bad burger, and that's okay, right? Like it's those small things, and it nurtures you as a human, right? It nurtures you as a community. And as I said, people invite me for those things because they think that I will share wisdoms with these women or like motivate these women. And in the end, Terri, I'm the one who leaves there fulfilled, right? Because yes, it's hard for everybody. Yes, it was hard for my mom. She had 3 small kids, a husband that passed away out of the blue, right? And she had to reinvent herself. So she's the person that I was looking like to become better for, right? And some of these women, they don't have those representatives. So I want to go there and be it for them. But at the same time, they teach me how to be humble, how to reinvent myself, how to from a really bad, poor situation, they just create something amazing, right? And they create groups like this. So I am, as you can see by my voice, very passionate about this topic, but there is no such a big thing or a small thing you can do. Even if you're listening to us and you're just starting your career now, right? Yes, you can mentor the new student in your office who has no clue where the bathroom is, right? Help each other, and it's a chain that we just one lift the other, and together we are way stronger.
Your passion is evident, Ketelyn, and it's something that came through on our very first call with one another. We hadn't even met, and I was just like blown away by how you can truly see the passion there. And I think probably does stem from background and your mum, and like you say, I know you kind of told me a bit of a story about her having to be strong, and she took the route, and you saw that, and I think it certainly has shown in you, but equally you can see how much you're trying to pass that on. And I think it's great that actually you're in a position to want to empower other women. It's interesting, I went to an event recently which was a female networking event, and somebody said to me, well, don't you find that the culture isn't that other women try and bring each other down rather than lift each other up, which I've never personally seen, and I think I'm quite lucky for that. But I think it is surprising how many people see the other way.
And I'll be candid with you. I had situations in my career that I felt that women are very competitive, and I think sometimes we just go in the wrong way and compete with each other. Right. And I don't even know if just in career, I can see external, I have a small daughter, as I mentioned, right? And she does cheer in the US, is very popular, right? Small kids, they cheer for the football. Now I'm learning football. Look at that. But cheering for the football season, right? And she loves that. She loves gymnastics. She's still young, she's 6 years old. And but come on, she's young, she's 6, right? So I do that for the fun. She goes there and she cheers, and then I can see all these other moms, somebody came to me and said your daughter is now a flyer, and I'm like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? I have no clue, right? And she's like, how come your daughter is a flyer and my daughter is not a flyer? And I'm like, beg your pardon, I don't care, I just want her to have fun. But I see this competition, and sometimes I think women, she's trying to compete with me because of our kids, and I'm like, lady, I'm so sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not going to entertain this sadness. I already have enough in my life going on. So I agree that I myself face, and even in the office, being super candid, right? I face sometimes why is she moving faster, and then she's from abroad, and and most of that, I feel it really comes from women, which is unfortunate, right? So that's why I think people like you and we have to drum the beat, right? Don't stop to say, let's move from this old thinking to we are here to lift each other. We are not gonna go far if we try. Every time you try to put somebody down, you have to go down to do that, right? I tell my kids all the time, every time I scream at somebody, it hurts more my ears than the other person's ears, right? So I rather do the reverse.
Exactly. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. I think you've achieved incredible results, and I think for the fact that you are the person that is cheering for females across the world, it's something that is inspiring, and I'm sure you will just continue to do that. I think particularly the fact that you are the first female in your role is incredibly inspirational, and I know that your daughter will look back at you and say, wow, mum, well done. So it's great, and I really am here for it, and I know that anybody else that's listening to this is very much on the same page as us. We're all hoping for the best for one another. If you've got one piece of advice, Ketelyn, for future female leaders, your daughter as one of those, what's that piece of advice that you would share?
I will build it into two-way phrases. So for me, first of all, make sure that no matter what, you have to be true to yourself. Whoever you are, make sure that, yes, we adapt. Yes, I adapt in Dubai. Yes, but I'm still the bubbly Latina person, even though sometimes it might be too much for some people, too little for others. Be true to yourself. You're never going to please everybody. I'm over that, right? Be over that too. Be true to yourself, because it's a long run, right? It's a marathon. So like pretending you're somebody else, pretending it all the time, it's not the way. And if you're in an environment that you need to be something different than who you are, it's not the environment for you. So generally be true to yourself, but especially like you are the one who defines what success means to you, right? I make this joke, and people who knows me, I always tell this story, and I'll make it like in 2 seconds. But when I joined IBM, I had a purse, a specific purse. I know it sounds silly, but a specific purse that was my dream purse. I don't buy expensive stuff, but it was one big thing. Every time I got a promotion, I was always saying, the next promotion, I'm going to get that purse. Just so you guys know, I got to vice presidency and I never bought the purse. One day my husband bought it for me and gave it to me. I'm like, I love with the story, right? But this story is just to say, success is not that material thing. It's not that place you get, because every time you get there, you want something else. Hopefully you do, right? That's life. But also don't let people define what success means to you. Define the success for you. Maybe success for you is going to become the first vice presidency woman in a CFO role. Maybe that. But maybe success for you is going to be the very best stay-at-home mom, super involved with your kids, making sure that you're raising the best generation you can for this world, right? Maybe it is to become somebody your volunteer work. Does not matter. Make sure that you define what success means to you and go after to make really a fulfilling life. But don't let anybody define who you are. Be true to who you are and define your success and go after it. Stop hearing the noise, like shut down the noise, silencio Bruno, and go after who belongs to you. And believe me, you can get it. Like there's nobody that can stop a determined woman. Nobody.
It's so true. Ketelyns, your ambition, your passion, your energy, everything just shone through on that session. So thank you so much. I have one last question, because it is the Tea with TE podcast, which is, how do you take your tea?
Oh, I am the tea drinker. You wouldn't believe that I have 3 drawers in my office with teas. Like I'm the tea person. But I'm gonna disappoint the London people now. I cannot take with milk at all. Never, ever, ever done it. No. I take my tea, hot water, any good tea, and a splish of lemon, and that's it.
Perfect. Well, thank you. And thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share?
I just want to say a huge thank you to you. It was inspirational to get to know you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to your audience. As I said, I feel very passionate, and I think that's what we take from this life, right? It's the good moments we have, and this is certainly one that I will never forget. So thank you so much for this experience.
Thank you so much, Ketelyns.